Chris Burns, and welcome to The Network. Hard talk with a matrix of newsmakers. The headlines. It's a showdown rocking the euro. Greece's far-left Syriza party, led by the charismatic Alexis Tsipras, challenges the governing Conservatives. With 25% of Greeks still jobless, many voters reject the austerity imposed by the Troika, the EU, European Central Bank, and IMF. The cuts were in exchange for nearly €250 billion in financial lifelines, much of which Tsipras says should be written off. Throw out the EU's Economic Stability Pact and cave in to Tsipras, or throw Greece out of the Eurozone, even the EU, with what consequences? Now, wired into this edition of the network here at the European Parliament in Brussels, Dimitrios Papadimoulis, a vice president of the European Parliament and member of the Syriza party. He says austerity has caused a humanitarian crisis in Greece. Guy Verhofstadt, chair of the centrist Liberals and Democrats in the Parliament and former Belgian Prime Minister. He says a Greek default would send another shockwave to the Eurozone. And Joel Darvash, senior fellow at Bruegel, a Brussels-based economic think tank, he argues for easier terms for Greek debt before the government there runs out of money this summer. A question to all of you, starting with Dimitrios. This is brinksmanship. You've got, on one side, you've got the Troika hanging tough on austerity, and Mr. Tsipras on the other side demanding debt forgiveness. Who is going to blink first in this standoff?
No one. We are ready to discuss, to negotiate, and to find compromise solutions based to the proposals of Bruegel, for example, because our debt now is not viable. We don't want to have more loans. We want growth instead of austerity.
Guy, how do you see that? I mean, it really does look like a standoff here, doesn't it?
Well, the Nea Dimokratia, nothing changed. If they win, Syriza, if they win, then there is a possibility of a Grexit and a new crisis in Europe. So I hope for a third way. And there is a third party coming up, Topotami, the last days of this election. And what they are proposing and what we are proposing is we need, certainly more time, an extension of the maturity of these loans, and at the same time we need real reforms.
But Joel, if they're going to run out of money, this does seem like a one way or the other, doesn't it? This is a standoff. Who's going to blink?
I don't think that any of the two major parties will blink. There has to be a compromise. The negotiations will be tough, in my view. A couple of times they may be suspended. But at the end of the day, it's in a very strong interest in both sides, both the Troika and Greece, to find a compromise agreement, and I trust they will.
Okay, Dimitrios, is it time to loosen this straitjacket that people say is on Greece, the EU Stability Pact? But isn't that going to throw the EU Stability Pact out the window, and couldn't that undermine the euro dangerously, Dimitrios?
Ex-Commissioner Prodi said that the Stability Pact is idiot pact. And now there are decisions from the Commission giving more flexibility to that pact in order to turn the whole euro area to the growth instead of the recession and of the deflation. We are part of that larger coalition.
Guy, the Stability Pact holding governments to 3% of GDP for their budgets, isn't this becoming a joke?
Yep. It's necessary to have it because it's impossible to have a euro, a monetary union, and not to have rules and to stick to these rules. But it's not enough. For Greece, there is something special to do. There are in-depth reforms to be made because all the policies of the Troika of the last years, that was not asking for in-depth structural reforms. What they did was asking money to the people. More taxes, lower minimum wages, lower allowances in unemployment, and that's the wrong way. That has killed the economy of Greece.
Joel, is this time to throw the Euro Stability Pact out the window? It doesn't seem to be working, does it?
I mean, for Greece, the Stability and Growth Pact does not really matter because in this year already a budget surplus is expected. And if growth will pick up as it was forecast by many institutions, then the debt to GDP ratio will also start to fall quite rapidly. So in fact, Greece will meet all the conditions of the Stability and Growth Pact.
Guy, could this be a test case for other countries? This is the thing. If we let a bit of slippage on Greece, what about Italy? What about France? What about Portugal?
That's absolutely dangerous and the danger of the situation. What we need to do is to do three things, I think, in Greece. First of all, like I said already, extend the maturity of a number of loans, and that is absolutely needed. Secondly, asking for the new government to do the real in-depth reforms that are still lacking. And three, we need an investment strategy. Because now, for the moment, you have to know there is an enormous exodus. 200,000 young Greeks have left the country.
Let's talk about these painful reforms, Dimitrios. I mean, how are you going to do this? The Troika is going to insist on you carrying out these reforms to get more money before you run out at the, I mean, if you do come to power. How are you going to do this? You know, can you speed privatization? Can you loosen labor laws? Is this the kind of thing that your party is willing to support?
Our program is full of reforms, simplifying the tax system, because in Greece the rich people do not pay taxes.
Yeah,
cracking down the oligarchic phenomenon in the Greek economy, which is full of bureaucracy, corruptions, and black money to the political regime. Simplifying and modernizing the administration, creating a more friendly to the investments environment, but also giving to the poorer people some support, because we have a humanitarian crisis and a huge unemployment.
Joel, if they don't carry out these reforms, the reforms that are demanded by the Troika, can you imagine a Grexit? Some people are talking about a Grexit, leaving the euro.
Now, there could be a Grexit, but I think if it was so devastating for Greece, Greek output would contract further, unemployment would rise further, that I'm quite confident that the new government will find a compromise with the Troika.
Yeah, you're confident, but we're hearing from officials in different countries here in Europe that it is thinkable. A Grexit is thinkable and might actually be a good thing.
No, it's a stupid idea. It's a stupid idea for the Greeks and a stupid idea for Europe. First of all, for Greece itself and for the Greeks, because that should mean a Grexit, a losing of purchasing power of maybe 20, 25 or 30% for every ordinary Greek. So it should be devastating for Greece and for Europe.
I want to say something about Grexit.
Right.
With Syriza and the government, there is no chance for a Grexit. The common interest of the Greek people, the Greek economy, and the European economy is to find a compromise solution. And so I fully agree with Guy Verhofstadt that it's a stupid idea which came from a part of the German government, but now it is appearing.
Okay, and final question, is the EU failing Greek youth? We're looking at a lost generation here, and that could have import on election outcome. Sold. Is the EU failing youth?
I think the EU is indeed had made very weak policies toward youth unemployment, but ultimately economic growth is the only measure that can help job opportunities and also help the young people to find a work. And until in the EU we have very weak growth or stagnation, there is no hope that the young people will find jobs.
Guy, Horizon 2020, 80 billion euros over 7 years to try to give youth a reason to come back home?
Well, it's one element, but the main element that we have to do, the main step forward that we have to make is to far more integrate all markets. All our markets of the future, digital market, telecom market, capital markets, energy market, are not integrated. For example, if you are a young guy and you find a new app on internet, it takes you 28 authorizations before you can launch your application, or even you need to have an agreement with more than 100 mobile operators. So that is lacking, a lack of unity and integrated markets.
Dimitrios,
our
final
priority
is the EU failing your country?
Our priority is a turn to the growth, not only in Greece, but also in Europe as a whole. The only way to reduce the unemployment and the youth unemployment and the cracking down of the social state is the growth of the economy. And our program is full of democratic reforms in order to support that orientation.
We'll see if the voters buy that, Dimitrios. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our guests, Dimitrios Papadimoulis, Guy Verhofstadt, and Joel Darvash. I'm Chris Burns, and until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.